Alright, so I want to ask you guys a couple questions about your record. Tell people that don't know, can you just describe what your record sounds like?
A record? Well, check it out. All it is 3 or 4 guys in a studio just screwing around. We're not trying to write punk rock, we're not trying to write reggae, we're not trying to write ska, we're just trying to write a good song. And however it comes out, it's just pretty much spontaneous in the studio. Most of the stuff you're going to hear on our album is just going to be something that happened on the spot in the studio. Thank God the tape was rolling. We did it every day. We'd have about 25 million hours.
If you took rock, hip-hop, reggae, ska, punk, mixed them all in a bowl, threw in a few more genres, and you got Sublime. Now in today's video, I'm talking all about Sublime and Bradley Nowell. I'm gonna take you on a tour of different venues, schools that he went to, basically the beginnings of Sublime. And along the way, stories to boot, so let's go. Now we start this video right here in Long Beach in a neighborhood called Belmont Shore. And this here is where Bradley Nowell was born and raised. Now Bradley Nowell was born into a musical family. His mom was a piano player, piano teacher, and his dad was a construction worker, but he also played the guitar. So at a very early age, Bradley was obviously turned on to music. He learned guitar and piano at a very early age, and he was really drawn to the guitar. So fast forwarding to a 10-year-old Bradley, it was around this time that his parents would get a divorce. Now his mom won custody of Bradley. However, Bradley was a very difficult child. His mom described him as very sensitive, overly emotional, very artsy, but a troubled kid. And after his parents got a divorce, he actually got worse. And so from then on, his dad took on custody of Bradley. Now Bradley was really into sailing and he was really into surfing when he was a young kid. And him and his dad, right around the time Bradley was 11, they would go on a month-long sailing trip. And him and his dad would go out to the Virgin Islands. And it was around this time when Bradley actually discovered for the first time reggae. And he was really drawn to this music. He really loved it. And it started influencing his guitar playing. And it was shortly after that he returned from his trip that he discovered the genre ska. By the age of 16, Nowell would start a band called Hogan's Heroes. Now, I'm assuming that it's after the TV show. And in that band, he would have Eric Wilson. And now Eric Wilson was the bass player, and he would later on become the bass player for Sublime. However, in this band, it just didn't quite work out. Nowell was very into reggae at the time, and he wanted to become a heavily reggae band. And Eric Wilson wasn't a big fan of reggae. He was very much a punk rocker, so when reggae was introduced to him, he wasn't very much on board. The band didn't really work out, and it just kind of fell apart. Both of them later on in their later years would say that the band just really just didn't work out. And they said, well, it kind of sucked. This is a nice mural. It's a nice tribute to Bradley Nowell and Sublime all together here. This is really nice. Bradley Nowell holding his child, his son, Jacob, and Blue Dog, which became Sublime's mascot. She was oftentimes seen on stage as Sublime performed. She was oftentimes in their videos. So this is just a really cool mural. And I love this right here. It says Long Beach on top, but then underneath, life is too short, so love the ones you got. This song from, and obviously those are lyrics from What I Got. Great song. Now, if you ever wanted to come out and see this awesome mural of Sublime and Bradley Nowell, it's out here by Floyd 99 Barbershop. It's on Termino and Ocean Boulevard in Long Beach, California. Okay, now that we've seen the whereabouts of where Bradley Nowell was raised here in Long Beach, let's go to the high school that he attended. Let's go. Now right now I'm at Polytechnic High School in Long Beach, and this would be the high school that Bradley Nowell would go to. And the interesting thing is that he went to school with Snoop Dogg and Cameron Diaz. Now they're all in the same kind of time of graduation. I think Cameron Diaz was a little bit younger and she graduated a couple of years after them, but it's kind of a nice little side note. I don't think that Snoop Dogg and Bradley Nowell knew each other while they were going to high school. I mean, it's a pretty big high school, so it's a good chance that they didn't even know at the time. However, I know that Snoop Dogg and him hooked up later on and became basically business acquaintance and kind of did some stuff together. But while they were in high school, they didn't know each other. Now, Bradley went to the school circa 1986, and around this time, he was a pretty quiet kid. He kept to himself, and he was known to not have very many friends in high school. He was very musical, though. He would oftentimes sit in his room, much like yours truly, and record on his 4-track music that would later on go on to some of the Sublime albums. He was also known as a very gifted child, or a very gifted teenager, because his level of intelligence was quite up there. He was already taking very high-level classes, college-level classes. He was quite a good student, actually. Now, it was shortly after Bradley would graduate from Polytechnic High School that he would then go to college, and he would go off to University of California, Santa Cruz. And so he transferred out to Cal State University, Long Beach. That's where we're going next, and this is the beginning of Sublime. Let's go.
Everybody over at K-Rock's done us so good. We have nothing but patience. We have nothing but love for K-Rock. Right on. They're leading the way in all of America. Hey, Mr. Tripp, everybody follow K-Rock.
Jed's gonna have your job, Mr. Tripp.
It don't matter what it's called.
Jed is gonna own your station, buddy. You need to retire. Hand it over to the new generation. It's Jed's.
Jump, T-Man's gonna be the next man.
After Bradley left Santa Cruz, we would come back to Cal State University, Long Beach, right here in Long Beach, California, and that's where I am right now. Shortly after he came back to Long Beach, he would reconnect with Eric Wilson, the bass player that he played in a band with many years ago in high school. They decided to start a band again. This time a good one, apparently. Eric Wilson had a lifelong friend who played the drums. His name was Bud Gall. And the three of them got together and they felt a real nice connection. Now, I assume at this time they're probably all better musicians as well. They started Sublime. Now, this was circa 1987, and shortly after the band started getting together and performing and practicing their songs, they would start playing right here on the Long Beach campus. This was the first place that they would start getting exposure. They were starting to kind of, slowly build up their fan base. And it was between performing on campus right here and performing at people's house parties. Now, because Sublime was such an eclectic band, their music was so eclectic, it was just all this different genres mixed up, they actually had a hard time getting gigs out at clubs. They tried and a lot of the club owners kind of doubted their music. They wanted to move up, and they were just getting tired of not getting any gigs at some of these venues. in Long Beach. So what they did next was pretty intelligent of them. They actually started their own label, Skunk Records, and it worked. They showed that they were a signed band onto a label, and this is when the venues started accepting Sublime into the venues. Now we're gonna go to one of the first venues that they played at, and this is an interesting one. Let's go check it out. So right now I'm on the peninsula here in Long Beach, California. And right behind me would be the first venue that Sublime would play at. Now, they played here in 1988, and in fact it was the 4th of July of 1988. And they finally landed themselves a gig at an actual venue. Now Sublime was kind of known as a little bit of a rebel rouser type of a band. When they played out, they kind of like to troll some of their audience sometimes. Since this was their first venue, maybe they didn't know any better, but because of that, it was around 5 p.m. in the afternoon on the 4th of July. Everybody was drunk, everybody was rowdy already, and a riot broke out. Now imagine the first time you get a gig at an actual venue, you cause a riot. Now I don't know if actually Sublime caused a riot. There's not too much information on how it actually started, but from what I heard, it was a very small club with a bunch of drunk people, and a riot just broke out. Now it didn't just stay inside this venue here. It actually, the riot spread throughout the peninsula, and it went down the road. Some people were breaking windows, people were lighting off fireworks. It just got really crazy, and it got so crazy that the cops were called. There was a lot of policemen came out here and basically in riot gear and round up a lot of people. A lot of people were arrested because of this riot. Most of the people were just like forced off of the peninsula. Now obviously the venue is not open anymore. That was many years ago. It's gone through many different hands. I'm not even sure if whatever it is now, if it's even open. Olive by the Bay. Now if you wanted to check out this venue for yourself, it's out here at 76 and a half 62nd Place, Long Beach, California. It's not much to look at, but it's got a lot of history. All right, guys, we're gonna be off to another venue here, and this next venue that we're gonna go to is the first venue that actually had Sublime on the regular play live. So let's go check it out. Now this is just a real quick stop here, but this here is known as Horny Corner. I didn't name it, I don't know the origin of the name, but that's the name of this area. And apparently Sublime would play live right here out on the beach during the summer times. Pretty fun. Someone's having fun. I caught a party out there. Right behind me here is Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles. Now I'm not here for the chicken and waffles, sounds good though. But in the 1990s, this was called Toe Jam. And this is the venue where Sublime would find themselves quite often playing live. This kind of became a regular joint for them. Now this was also a venue where multiple bands around that time, bands that would become popular later on like No Doubt, would play. A lot of the bands would play right here. It was a popular venue in Long Beach. That was also right here where a good friend, Michael Happold, saw them play live. Michael Happold was a student at Long Beach as well, and he was going for a music engineering degree, and he offered Sublime to record them.
They would do this without the permission of the Long Beach campus.
Happold would sneak Sublime onto campus here to do the recording. Now this is the fine art area, so he was a music engineer. So after midnight, they would come on, sneak onto the campus, go into the studio, record until 7 a.m., pack up their stuff and get right out. Now the recordings that they did ended up being the EP Do You Wanna Pay the Bills, and that came out in 1991. Now that was a recording that they would end up shopping around and getting more gigs. They would also sell that recording at the gigs, and they also put that EP in local music shops and sold them there. Now this was definitely a step forward for Sublime. This also allowed them to get a much bigger audience. At this point, Sublime was known quite well locally, but it was the next step that they would take that would skyrocket them. Let's go talk about that next. Now, before we go on to the next venue, I do want to bring up the fact that Bradley Nowell was kind of experimenting with drugs around this time. He very much liked to try different drugs, and he had a bit of a drug problem. There were a few times where he had to go to rehab. He was addicted to heroin, kind of off and on, and I believe some of the other band members had some issues too where they had to go to rehab. Now the band was kind of known as troublemakers too. Some of the big shows that they would go on to performing at later with other bands, they got kicked off some shows. Lou Dog ends up biting some of the guests apparently, and they got kicked off. But of course I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's go to the next venue. So Do You Wanna Pay Bills was kind of like the starter album, the EP album, the album that they would shop around, but it was also quite a few songs. In fact, a lot of those songs would go on to other albums. And that came out in 1991. 1992, they would come out with their other album, 40 Ounce to Freedom. And 40 Ounce to Freedom was their first studio album, and it was released on their record label, Skunk Records. Now right across the street from me right here is the Hideout Bar. And the Hideout Bar used to be called Ferns. And the reason why this venue is so important is because this is the venue where Sublime would end up filming one of their music videos. Now unfortunately, because of the algorithm of YouTube, I can't actually say the name of this song. But I think most of you true fans will know exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, here it is on screen, the name of the song without saying it. And I'm gonna lamely say it's called Date R-Word Song. That's the best I can do. Now this is the filming location for that video right inside. And like I said, it used to be called Ferns. Now it's called the Hideout Bar, which I believe is owned by none other than Snoop Dogg. Now I'm right now inside Hideout Bar. It used to be the Ferns Bar, but this is the stage right here, I believe, where Sublime would record that video. And they would have the bar in the background right here oftentimes. If you remember the video, there's the bar right there. And they also have a really cool mural, or actually photo of Bradley Nowell right there. I know I'm thinking back to the video, and it looks very much the same in here. It's kind of cool to be walking around and remembering that music video at the same time. It's a pretty nice bar. I totally recommend coming by. Like I said, Snoop Dogg owns this bar now. Now, if you wanted to come out and check it out for yourself, it's over here on 4th Street on the corner of Almond Avenue.
Is it weird to you that date?
Are you talking to these two or to all of us? We don't know. She's talking to me, goddammit. I can't hear you.
Date rape is, like, all the mainstream fans know that now, and that song for you guys is like 3 years old.
Oh, it's way older than that, baby. I wrote that when I was about 19. I have no idea what she's asking us. Therefore, you know why I wrote it? I wasn't even in a band or nothing. I was just messing around with the guitar, writing something I thought sounded cool. Figure, go figure, right?
By 1995-96 rolls around, Sublime has signed on to a major label, and they started working on their last studio album. Now, their last studio album was just going to be simply called Sublime, a self-titled album. And they started working on this early 1996, right around in February. They completed recording the album. Now, around March, Nowell would find sobriety. He would go to rehab, and he would kind of be able to get himself out of his addiction for heroin. But sometime in May, Nowell would find himself in San Francisco, and he was at a motel. But unfortunately, on May 25th, 1996, Nowell was found dead in his motel room. He died from a heroin overdose. Now, it was an unfortunate time because their third studio album is the album that broke out Sublime. The album went platinum. They had a #1 song on it, and unfortunately, Nowell never got to see that. The album sold millions, and a lot of the people that were new fans had no idea that Nowell had died. Right now, I'm in Westminster, California, at Westminster Memorial Park. And right here is where Bradley James Nowell gravesite is. Now his headstone says, "Now at peace, Bradley James Nowell, 1968 to 1996. Now, even though this is his headstone, this is his memorial here, he is actually not buried here. This is actually a cenotaph. He was actually cremated, and his ashes were spread out over an area where he loved to surf. So let's go to our last stop, which is Bradley Nowell's real resting area. Now, right now, I'm standing over here, seaside, over in Huntington Beach. And this is where Nowell loved to surf. As I said at the beginning of this video, he loved to surf and he loved to go sailing. And about 20 minutes from his cenotaph over in Westminster, California, right here is where his true remains are. What is left of him anyway. His ashes were scattered throughout this area. And my heart truly goes out to the Nowell family. You know, obviously, you know, it's a hard thing for a family to lose somebody that was so important to them. And my heart goes out to Sublime too. But ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, I hope you can hear me with this wind, but if you like this video, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up. Also, if you want to see my last video, it's my Michael Jackson video that I did about 2 or 3 weeks ago as a recording of this video. And if you want to check out some other videos, over here I did a video on Scott Weiland. Go check that video out, or my latest video. I'll see you guys over there. Bye-bye.